Today's episode of Dead Rabbit Radio contains content of a disturbing nature. Listener discretion is advised. The eclipse has come and gone, and yet the world still stands. But for some people, April 8th was their last day on planet Earth. Then we take a look at a quickly growing conspiracy theory that started off in Hollywood. A conspiracy that'll have you asking, how do I get a job like that? And then we travel to an abandoned farmhouse to kick back and watch some television with a husband and his wife. They think they're going to just watch some fun TV before hitting the hay, literally. But instead, this television is about to broadcast a bizarre message that may also be a warning. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. Hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. I can tell you this. If you're having a great day and you don't want it to be ruined, skip our first story. But before we get to that story, walking into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, everyone get on your feet and give it up for our legacy Patreon supporter, Medusa Buzzcut. Woohoo! Yeah! Yeah! Walking all in with all of the cut up snake little heads poking off. Medusa Buzzcut, I imagine that's just a bunch of decapitated snakes, but it makes a cool flat top. Medusa Buzzcut, you're going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the Patreon or through YouTube memberships, anything like that, that's fine too. It really is. It really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. Medusa Buzzcut, let's go ahead and get this party started. I'm going to toss you... Ooh, a new vehicle. I just came up with a new vehicle. The Rabbit Roadster. Dun 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 dun. We can see this cool sports car. It's like all on like a spinny display, floodlight illuminating it in Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Dun 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 dun. We're walking up. This is dope. Why is this the first time I have a sports car? It's always an old chitty bing bang car. Everyone hopping as Medusa Buzzcut fires up the Rabbit Roadster. We're leaving behind Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Drive us all the way out to L.A. Flying out in the Rabbit Roadster. This car's pretty dope, actually. Why am I just getting this now, man? This is slick. Comfortable seating. There's no top. Convertible. Flying down the road. Headed to LA. No, I'll tell you this. That's about as fun as this first story's going to get. And the other two stories are cool, so maybe skip ahead. This first story's rough, though. This first story's really rough. But let's get into it. Because it does talk about something we covered last week, and I think it is a big problem in the conspiracy theory community. We talked about this on last Monday's episode about the April 8th eclipse, and there was all this talk going around on the internet about it being the end of the world, or the beginning of the end of the world, and this was gonna... Everything from the rise of the Antichrist to the Jewish Messiah showing up. They're going to sacrifice this red heifer during the eclipse. All this stuff was coming out. And people were getting really scared. And I said on that episode, I go, listen, I'm not here to police the conspiracy theory community. I think I call out stuff that I think is dumb. But I go, if you want to believe in that stuff, if you want to talk about that stuff, I'm not going to say you can't talk about it. However, I continued, I think there are real-world consequences to this stuff sometimes. I believe, for one, that if you look at the suicide rate for the year 2012, that more people killed themselves in the lead up to December 2012 because they thought the world was going to end. Now, to be honest, I'll be totally honest with you, I can't find hard numbers to back that up. Suicide's been on the rise, unfortunately, for decades. It does look like there's a slight increase, But I was saying, even if you just had a dozen people kill themselves because they were so terrified of what was going to happen on December 21st, 2012, that let's say 12 people took their lives. I think you have to own that to a certain point. If you were 100% spreading that conspiracy theory. Now, does that mean you shouldn't do it? Does that mean that because you fear that something negative might happen that you shouldn't talk about it? I'm not saying that at all. You do have the freedom to talk, but you have to own it to a certain point. I think if you peddle into the world conspiracy theories, if you really are pushing that, and if you're making money or getting clicks off of it, I don't think that you should go to prison or anything like that, but I think you do need to own it to a certain degree. And I was talking about with the eclipse as well. People are really getting worked up at this eclipse. This eclipse is the end of the world, and I said it won't be. Not to brag, but I was right. Unfortunately, I was right about something else that episode. And I'm reporting this story. It totally breaks my heart. It's completely disturbing. But I think we need to talk about it. It's April 8th, 2024. We're in the LA area. Specifically, we're in Culver City, California. It's outside of Los Angeles. It's 4:30 in the morning. And people are driving down the highway there. And they see something beyond description. Absolutely horrific. Your mind couldn't even process what you were looking at. It was so bad. 30 minutes later, down by Redondo Beach, a car slams full speed, 100 miles an hour, flying down the road, slams directly into a tree, instantly killing the driver. A couple hours later, there are some police officers at a apartment complex in Woodland Hills. And they're looking at this crime scene. They're like, oh my God, what happened here? I mean, we can kind of put two and two together, but this is horrific. And one of the neighbors says, we heard something going on. I guess we shouldn't have ignored it, but that hindsight's 2020. However, there's kids missing from here. There's kids who live here and we don't know where they're at. So the police are getting ready to file an Amber Alert for 2 missing kids. And all of this stuff is going on, and the police are getting all this chatter on the radio, and the detectives at this apartment start to realize, wait a second, we don't have to do an Amber Alert on these kids. Unfortunately not. We wish we could, but we already know where the kids are. And it was this weird jumble of information. 3 separate scenes, but as police start looking into it, they realize the cruel web that connects them all. There's a woman, a girlfriend, a mother named Danielle Johnson, 34 years old, a very famous, at least social media-wise, astrology influencer. She had 103,000 followers on Twitter. She's been around for a long time. She's been in the business a long time. But leading up to the April 8th eclipse, she began posting curious, then, now with hindsight, troubling tweets. On April 5th, she tweeted, "This eclipse is the epitome of spiritual warfare. Get your protection on and your heart in the right place." The world is obviously changing right now, and if you ever need to pick a side, the time to do right in your life is now. Stay strong, you got this. April 5th, wake up, the apocalypse is here. Everyone who has ears, listen. If you believe, a new world is possible for the people right now. April 7th retweets a quote from Q the Storm, a Twitter account called Q the Storm. Alert, this is the final warning. Turn notifications on. Do not look at the eclipse. Something big is coming. April 8th, Woodland Hills, California, outside of LA. Danielle shares an apartment with her boyfriend, Jalen Allen, he's 29, and her 2 children. A 9-year-old daughter named Sarah and an 8-month-old daughter. Well, actually, these are the names. The media has not released any of the names for the kids, but a 9-year-old, we'll call her Sarah, and an 8-month-old daughter, we'll call her Betty. Jalen and Danielle get in an argument. It's about 4:30 in the morning, and the neighbors are kind of hearing this. Police had never been called out to this apartment before. Danielle had never had any previous interactions with mental health authorities or police. April 8th, 2024, she gets into an argument with Jalen. She grabs a knife and stabs Jalen to death in front of her 9-year-old daughter. She then grabs her children, jumps in her Porsche, and takes off. She's driving down Interstate 405 in Culver City. From what I gather, this is something I kind of had to piece together from a couple different articles, but from what I gather, Sarah is sitting in the passenger seat, holding on to Betty. And they're flying down the freeway, and as they're driving, Danielle opens the car door and throws her children out of a moving car, right onto the freeway. Sarah's holding on to her little sister, but as she hits the pavement, she lets go. And oncoming traffic is headed right towards them. Danielle's already speeding off from the scene. Betty is wounded. She's hurt by being thrown out of this moving vehicle. I don't know how fast it was going. But she was hurt enough that the only thing she could think of was to get to the curb to get away from these oncoming cars driving early morning, leaving Betty in the middle of the street where she is struck by a car and killed. People immediately, obviously, traffic stops. Police are being called. Why are there kids in the freeway? You have a 9-year-old who's off to the side, who's pretty badly banged up from getting thrown out of the vehicle, and her 8-month-old baby sister had just been run over and died on the scene. Rescue crews come out there, and obviously they're trying to save Betty's life. Danielle's speeding off. Danielle's gone from the scene. So a half hour later in Redondo Beach, when a car slams into a tree, the police think that this is not related at all to the kids on the freeway. Definitely not to the murder at home. They see this as a possible car accident, and then they start to think, well, maybe this was a suicide, and they're running all this investigations. And finally, they're able to piece together the horrifying story of Danielle, who killed 2 people and herself, and tried killing a third. What's interesting, I mean, the story's just absolutely horrific. And I think it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that these events are connected to her fear that something big was coming. That this eclipse was scaring her. She's reading this stuff. She's believing this stuff. She gets lost in it. Now listen, if she had a history of mental illness, I could understand you going, well, she was a tragic woman. She had a mental illness. Everything up until this point, as far as been reported by anybody, family members, police, anything like that, she suffered from no ill effect. But now all of a sudden you're hearing that the world is going to end over and over and over again. You kill your boyfriend, kill your kids, and then kill yourself. That, the thing is a lot of times when we hear about parents killing their kids and then killing themselves, this happens. It's unfortunately, I don't want to say super common, but in the world of true crime, we come across this story a lot. Like, as far as all crimes combined, it's relatively rare, but it is a phenomenon where parents will murder their children and then commit suicide or attempt to commit suicide. The question always is why? Why do they do that if they think life is so bad? I've heard this from people, and I've read books on this. would state the same question. If they think life is so bad for them, why take it out on their kids? Why not let their kids, be adopted by their grandparents or something like that? And that's because the first part of that sentence, they think life is so awful already. What type of cruel master must you be to give yourself release from this broken system we call existence, but yet doom your children to be raised in it? I don't agree with that, but that's their logic. They've actually, because a lot of times these parents survive. An adult human body can take more damage than a child's body, unfortunately. So a lot of times these parents may survive the drowning attempt, the jumping off the bridge, whatever, the slit wrist. And that's the reason why they kill their kids. They think the world is so cruel anyways that that would be the worst sin they could ever possibly do, to leave their children trapped in this matrix of hate. So they kill their kids. It's absolutely bonkers. It's so heartbreaking. But if you thought the world was going to end on April 8th, like you 100% thought that, there was no backing down from it, things were going to change, people were going to look at the eclipse and become zombies, or this asteroid was going to come, or this false messiah would arise to enslave all of humanity, she and people like her would think, well, I don't want that to happen to my kids. I'm so terrified to be in this world anymore. And I definitely don't want my kids to fall victim to it, so I'm going to kill myself and kill the kids. And I wonder if Jay Lynn was trying to, calm her down. And trying to keep her from taking the kids, and that's why she stabbed them. Now, for the record, the LAPD say that this doesn't really have anything to do with the eclipse. And like I said, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. That should tell you something about the LAPD. LAPD Lieutenant Guy Golan, he's the homicide detective investigating the case, said, quote, "We just don't know why she did what she did," unquote. And then, quote, "We've taken all the facts we can, but without being able to interview her and without having something more tangible than a post on X, Twitter, I don't know how much weight you can give to somebody saying there's an apocalypse and attribute it to one of the most horrific murders we've had in LA. Unquote, people have killed for way less reasons, in way crazier ways. She's afraid there's an apocalypse. She murders her boyfriend, throws her kids out of a moving vehicle, killing one of them, and then kills herself. That's a pretty big motive. I'd hate to see this guy find a suicide letter, and he goes, well, I can't interview that person, and yeah, sure, they hung themselves, and this letter explains why, but I just don't know. I don't think they're connected. I don't know what happened here. Like, what a ridiculous answer. What a ridiculous answer. I just can't see that. Somebody writing all this stuff on YouTube about how much they hate minorities, they go to a Safeway and they shoot a bunch of minorities and then shoot themselves, and they're like, well, we don't know. Yeah, it was just a post on Twitter. Weird. I can't interview him. So, I don't know. It's such a bizarre thing. This guy might be an eclipse. That's the astrological version of a furry. He dresses up as the moon. He's walking in front of his girlfriend, the sun, each night. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely tragic, too. And you know what's even worse is, so we had this, the world didn't end, the apocalypse has not started. But maybe like a day or two later, I started seeing posts show up that there were about to be 60-foot tall tsunamis wiping out every coastline in the world because some giant gas bubble or something has escaped from Antarctica, and they're showing these maps, like thermo wave maps or whatever, that are popping up. They show this big black blob moving under the water. They're like, it's this gas displacement thing. It's once the bubble reaches the surface, everyone's going to get washed away, and people are like, like clockwork. Right after the eclipse, now another thing's going to happen. That, of course, most people are going to not even be aware of. But the people who just got done being scared that the eclipse was going to end the world, now they hear this. Or one of another 100 possible end-of-the-world scenarios that are going to happen in the next month. Israel, they're going to sacrifice the red cow on April 22nd. They just put in their petition to get the sacrifice area set up. They're going to sacrifice this red cow. Apocalypse is going to start on April 22nd, and people are going to get super worked up over that. And some of them are going to do stupid, irreversible things. And nothing is going to happen. No, I'm not dissing the Jewish faith. But it's not going to be the end of the world. Life will go on, and then something else will pop up in May. This will be the last summer. The last summer of the world. Something game-changing is going to happen in August. And then we got, the election coming up in November. This is the last American election. You got it. You get worked up. You get worked up, and your fear level goes up, and your anxiety level goes up. And listen, I've been there, right? I used to be a hardcore conspiracy theorist. I've been there. I used to fear the end of the world all the time. I've been there. I get it. But see, you and me, we come across this stuff, and some of it may scare us, and some of it we may laugh at, but we have the wherewithal to go, this might not be true. And some people don't. We're smart enough to go, this is like the 10th apocalypse I've gone through in the past 5 years. We'll be okay. There's small chance that I'm wrong. The world will end. But most likely it won't. But then you have people like Danielle who murder her family, slaughtered them, and then killed herself. Over something that we just read in the news, and I did an article on Monday, and we kind of looked at the different conspiracy theories, kind of laughed about it, and I said, yeah, some people take this stuff too seriously. Okay, see you next week, and here we are next week, and we have something like this. And this one made the news, which makes me think there probably were people, 65-year-old white dude, already a huge statistical marker for suicide, 65-year-old single white man living at home, blows his brains out on April 8th because he's afraid of the end of the world. And he's all alone. He doesn't have any social network because he's an old man. He blows his brains out. That doesn't make the news. He didn't have 107,000 followers. He didn't commit 3 crimes. But there's not an... I don't really even... I'm not saying you can't talk about this, because who am I to say that? No, we should never discuss end of the world stuff, because it is a weird part of human nature almost. But we do have to talk about when these things happen, I believe. I'm not saying we should never talk about conspiracy theories or end of the world stuff or anything like that, because I don't think you can do that. I think if you don't talk about it, then the stuff gets even more radical. But we do need to talk about it when this type of stuff happens. And shame on the LAPD. I have no logical reason why they are not connecting these things. To say it's not even a factor, they could go, you know what, we're digging into her past, we're digging into her drug use or whatever, but this was a contributing fact. No, they're saying it has nothing to do with it. And what's the logic or the motive behind that? It's mind-boggling that they blew that off. That's all she's talking about in the days leading up to it. She does this on the morning of the eclipse. Nothing to do with it. Whatever. Absolutely tragic story. Absolutely ridiculous police work. Let's go ahead and move on to our next story, which is not as depressing by any stretch of the imagination. Medusa Buzzcut, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the... What's our funnest vehicle? Do we have a merry-go-round? We need something to kind of lighten the mood. I'm all tense over here. I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything funny right now. Medusa Buzzcut, I'm going to go ahead and toss you the keys to the Dead Rabbit Dirigible. We're leaving behind Redondo Beach. Why don't you go ahead and fly us out into the city of Los Angeles? Nice, leisurely, short ride to the city of Los Angeles. This is a really short story. I'm so intrigued by this. Let's take a look. We're in Los Angeles, and luckily we took the Dead Rabbit Dirigible. Medusa's going to land it on the roof. of these expensive, swanky penthouses. It's penthouses all the way down. Even the people who live on the first floor, it's called a penthouse. This is where the celebrities like to hang out. You know, sometimes you want to live in your house. Sometimes, like, after a movie comes out, you're like, oh, man, it sure was fun being in that movie, It. Really liked it. But now it's time for me to relax. So I don't even know anyone who was in that movie. Is Millie Bobby Brown in it? Millie Bobby Brown is sitting there in her house, and she's like, yes, being chased by that clown. Or the Demogorgon, I don't remember. I do so many movies nowadays. I'm sitting in my house, and then, you know what? This house is boring. Actually, not only is this house boring, I'm looking for a little bit of love. Millie is going to get laid tonight. She's over 18 now, right? I'm pretty sure she's an adult. So Millie Bobby Brown goes out on the town looking for love, and she sees this cute guy at a karaoke bar. I mean, she could take him back to her house. But, you know, she doesn't know this guy. He might, like, rob her. So she goes, you know what? Let's go to this penthouse and have sex. Let's go up to this penthouse and have sex. The dude's like, yeah, sure, right. You're over 18. And she's like, she shrugs. She's like, I don't know. So anyways, they go up to this penthouse, and she's taking her clothes off all seductively, and the dude's like, yeah, let's get it started. I'm about to see some stranger things, he says as he's looking at the camera. She's taking her clothes off. What he doesn't know, but she does. First off, I should say Millie Bobby Brown is not implicated in this story at all. I just picked her because I thought she was in It. She's not legally part of the story. What he doesn't know, but what she does, is that in the next room, there is a man. There's a man next door to them, and he is watching a direct video feed of Millie Bobby Brown and this dude get it on. Bobby Brown is going to Pound Town. I'm going to double check to make sure she's over 18, because otherwise these jokes are illegal. 20 years old, perfect. So she's getting plowed by this stranger she picked up from a karaoke bar. But what he doesn't know, and she does, is there's a man in the next room watching all of this play out via video. Now again, Millie Bobby Brown, she's actually not one of the people listed in this story. In fact, we don't have the names of anybody listed in this story. This is currently some might call it an urban legend, some might call it a huge business opportunity. But this is going around LA. What happened was, there was a A-list actor in Hollywood who was accused, a nameless A-list actor, who was accused of doing some quote-unquote bad things in the past, sexually. A couple women came out, there's allegations against him, he had a terrible reputation, and he said none of this stuff is true. But he still wanted to have sex with random people. So you're really, really skating on thin ice at that point, especially when that random person can Google you and go, wow, this guy has a pretty bad reputation. He goes, I didn't do any of it. It was all just allegations, but I want to protect myself from even these allegations coming out. He went to a friend of his, and he goes, hey, dude, I got a favor to ask. I really want to bang this chick, but... And the friend's like, yeah, you have a reputation, you know, those allegations, just allegations. The actor says, never been proven, but I really want to bang this chick, but I don't want anything to come out afterwards. Would you mind watching us have sex via camera? And that way, if she ever accuses me of doing anything, I have a witness. Now, I will also be videotaping it, the actor says. There will be videotaping it for my pleasure afterwards, but I want more than just a videotape. Also, videotapes are illegal. Illegally, you're not supposed to videotape anyone having sex without their knowledge. I can never use the videotape as actual evidence, but I could use you. If someone accuses me of something, you can come to court and you can say, I was actually watching the whole thing go down, and no, he didn't do anything to her. And then if it got really bad, maybe I might have to show the videotape, but would you do that for me? And this guy, we'll call him Chuck, the friend. Chuck says, yeah, Yeah, I'll do that. So he does. He watches his buddy, this actor, we'll call him Peter. He watches Peter have sex with this girl. Whatever, just the day. And it goes over so well that Peter, the actor, starts doing it more. He's like back in the groove. He's like, all right, finally a way to have sex and not have all those worries about false accusations afterwards. But Chuck has his own life. He's like, oh, I want to sleep with a woman tonight. Peter's like, no, I'll pay you. I'll actually pay you money to watch me have sex. So in case anything happens, you can testify in my case. And yeah, I'll do that for you. Especially now that money is exchanging hands. Well, the word starts to get around Hollywood about Peter and Chuck's arrangement. And there's a actress, we don't have her name, we'll call her Monica. She's A+ tier actress. So still acting, everyone knows her name. That's what an A+ tier. Millie Bobby Brown, for example. Not saying she's part of it, but everyone knows her name. Tons of successful projects. We'll call her Monica. She hears about this. She hears about Peter and Chuck's arrangement. Well, she gets a hold of Chuck and says, hey, I heard about what you and Peter do. I heard that you watch Peter have sex all the time. I'm not here to judge. People have weird things. I actually really enjoy threesomes with couples. But I don't want, because I'm getting these people, I'm getting these couples to show up. Basically, it's 2 against 1, not just sexually, but like my word against theirs. So I don't want to, hook up with this couple and then they start blackmailing me or accuse me of something like that. Chuck, if I pay you, will you watch me have sex with a man and a woman? He's like, yep. I mean, what a great job to fall into. He's like, yeah, sure. Can I get your autograph as well? And the same thing, he's in another room, he's watching video feed. Monica does not record it. It is video. Chuck's not just like hanging out, he's all like eating a sandwich, in the room they're having sex, and he's in another room watching it via video. But Monica doesn't videotape it, because she's not a pervert like Peter. We all know why Peter's really recording it. But Chuck does do that. So now he's getting paid to watch his friend Peter have sex, and he's getting paid to watch Monica have sex. Word spreads around even more at this point. Now, all sorts of high-profile people who want to have sex, which is everybody, but don't want any allegations, any false accusations, anything coming out, they are going to Chuck. And Chuck has to outsource this. Eventually, he hires a team of about 5 or 6 other people, because there's so many clients, and all they do, they have work 7 days a week, every week. Chuck and his squad, they get paid to sit in a room and watch a live video feed of famous people having sex. So Chuck and his team, the dream team, have the dream job. They get to watch famous people have sex and get paid for it. Now, I say it's the dream job because I'm imagining it's a bunch of hotties, right? Maybe it's like Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. banging. Or Sabrina Carpenter and any random man she meets walking down the street. But I mean, I'm sure you also get, occasionally Wilford Brimley's like, hey, Chuck, I'm about to go into an orgy. I want you to watch me have sex with 10 young women. You're like, but you can't look at the young women, Chuck. I'll pay you extra. You gotta look directly into my butthole the whole time. Like, how much money, Wilford? How much? Like, you could end up getting... you're like, wow, Colin Farrell, I'm going to go watch Colin Farrell have sex with this high-powered executive. Yeah, but he's wearing the penguin makeup. He's 400 pounds, waddling on top of this woman. I mean, I guess it really depends. He's like, I just got back from shooting the Batman. He waddles in. He's like, no time to take off my makeup. I think it would depend on who. But I mean, again, like, you're getting paid to watch people have sex. You're sitting in another room. You're all eating chips. Big sandwich. Wilford Brimley walks in. You're like, no, I didn't know he was coming into this sex scene as well. He winks at the camera and Gets a nice close-up of his butthole. that's his fetishes. You've seen his butthole. Crazy, though. If this story's true, I read... My big weakness is celebrity gossip. I read celebrity gossip every night before I go to bed. So I come across stuff like this. Whether or not it's true, one can only dream. One can only dream that at least 6 people have a job like this and are getting paid well for it. Although I imagine it's probably on call, right? You could be sitting at home watching the latest Millie Bobby Brown movie. And it's a videotape that you shot of her banging that guy at the karaoke bar. You're like, this isn't on Netflix yet. And then you get a call, and it's someone being like, hey, I just picked up a hottie from a bar. Can you come down here and watch me have sex with her? Like, I'm sure there are times where it's inconvenient. You're sitting in a movie, you're watching Civil War, and all of a sudden your phone, and it's like Wilford Brimley. It's just a message. It's just Wilford Brimley's butthole. And you're like, oh, that's your bat signal. That means it's time for you to go. You got to leave the middle of the movie and go to work. I imagine it's an on-call thing, but does sound amazing if you could get the right clients. Medusa Buzzcut, I do not have enough time for the... Jason, please quit talking about buttholes. If you cut out all of that stuff, maybe you'd have enough time to finish an episode. No, I won't. I don't have enough time to do the alien invasion story. You're like, oh man, that's what I was waiting for. Let's see what I got here. I got one more tiny story. We just got a tiny amount of time. I got one that's really depressing. I mean, I definitely don't want to package it with that first story. Let's see here. Here's a story that's equal parts terrifying and heartwarming. Medusa Buzzcut, I'm going to toss you the keys of the world-famous Carpenter Copter. We are leaving behind L.A. Fly us all the way out to Grandma's house. We're at Grandma's house. We're about to meet a grandma. We'll call her Angela. We don't have a real name. Angela, she's laying in bed. She's really on her last leg. Because she's in pretty bad shape. His grandma's about to die. Sorry. You're like, come on, man. This show is so depressing sometimes. Grandma's laying there in bed. She's all, oh, no, my heart. It hurts so bad. Not because I'm elderly and I'm about to die. Her heart hurts because her husband died a few months ago. I mean, the cancer doesn't help. The cancer that she has isn't helping the situation. She's like, oh, my heart cancer. No, her heart is broken. It won't heal. She actually did have cancer, and they removed it. She had stomach cancer. They got it out of there, but she's still just heartbroken over losing her husband. We'll call him Grandpa Gerald. Oh, Gerald, Jerry. Oh, please come back. Anyways, she's at home, and her son... Call him Bruce. Bruce is helping taking care of Grandma. She's pretty much immobile at this point. Plus, she's a big whiner. Oh, man, look at my cancer. Oh, can I get cancer? Can I get cancer treatment today? Grandma, why are you always bossing me around? Fine, we'll treat your cancer today. Take you to the hospital. You make me do everything. She's immobile. They pretty much have to do everything for her. She's just had stomach surgery to remove some cancer. And she misses her husband so much. I mean, listen, that's sad, but that's not an excuse to sit around in bed. I can't wash the dishes. Can't wash the dishes, Bruce. Can you do the dishes? I'm so heartbroken. Yeah, Grandma, I'll wash the dishes. Oh, I can't make it to the bathroom. Can you get the bedpan? I'm too heartbroken to go to the bathroom. What? And that might actually help your heart, Grandma, if you got up and walked around a bit. Oh, you're making me sad. Jerry never made me walk around. Well, anyways, she's immobile. They're doing everything for her. You know, they got to clean her, change her clothes, all that stuff. So family's there to help her out. Well, one day Bruce is walking around and he hears her talking. Hears her talking in her room. And he walks in, and he sees Grandma Angela sitting up in bed. That alone is a miracle. That alone is like, what? Call Ripley. Got to get a photographer down here. She's sitting up in bed. But not only that, she's wearing clean clothes. She changed her own clothes. Her bedroom is tidy. Like, it looks like someone's kind of cleaned up in here. It doesn't even make any sense. Because she's the only person in here. And she's just this lady laying in bed all the time. And I didn't understand this quote. It said she also, quote, cleaned herself up with tissues. So I don't know, like, maybe if she had, like, food on her. Like, she was spitting up food, like, I don't know. She was clean. She was clean. I've never cleaned an old person. Do you use tissues to clean them up? So you can get every nook and cranny. You're, like, getting in between the wrinkles. You're like, there you go, Grandma. Everything's A-okay. She comes in. She's wearing clean clothes. She's tidied up. The room's tidied up. And Bruce was like, what in the world? Mom, how did you do all this? How did you clean yourself up? You got those nice clean clothes on. I see your wrinkles are sparkling like they were just formed yesterday. How did you do all this stuff? And Angela kind of looks at her son, kind of like, what, you dumb? You big dummy? Did I give birth to a dummy? Did an idiot crawl out of my uterus? She looks at Bruce and goes, my family helped me out. Can't you see them? And then she kind of gestures around to an empty room. And Bruce is like... Actually didn't say what his reply was. So I just paused. He didn't say what his reply was. I mean, I would be... Like, what would you say to an elderly person who goes, oh, look at... You figure she's dead at this point, right? When she's hallucinating family who has passed before her, you're like, oh, well... Make sure she signs that will within the next day or two. I mean, like, you're not going to go, Grandma, this you're just walking around the room punching the air. You're like, what family? And she's like, oh, no, you punched Uncle Billy. Oh, no, Cousin Mike, you've drowning him. You're, like, mimicking holding your hands underwater. You could do you could assault her hallucinations. Or you could, I mean, like, I think the normal thing, like, because we've covered a lot of stories like this. This one I found... underneath the account Glitter Skinned. I'd recently done a bunch of stories about people, like what they saw right before they died. This was another one, because I kept finding them. This was another one I found that I thought was interesting. You could say, yeah, wow, look at this family, whoa, totally awesome, you're all being patronizing. You're like, wow, Grandma, really cool family. You're all putting your arms around in the air. You're like, is this Cousin Billy? Oh, give him a noogie. You know, I don't know, do you play along with it? You're like, don't you hear the music? You're all doing a jig. She's like, I don't hear any music, but Bruce is dancing. You could probably really mess with a dying person's brain. You could say, no, Grandma, there's no one here. It's just you and me. No, look at the family. Look at all of them. Here's the thing. You can say all sorts of things. You can dance a jig. But it's not that fact that she's just hallucinating. They cleaned up the room. So they were like interacting with her in some sort of way. At this point, they're less of a hallucination, more of a ghost. Also, actually, now that I think about it, imagine you were dead. And then, you know, like 15 years later... You're floating around in heaven, and then you see Cousin Mike float over to you. He's like, hey, buddy, what's up, man? Hey, dude, Grandma Angela is going to die in a couple days. You want to come down? We're going to go down and visit her and show her that the other side isn't so bad. That death is just a process into a new beginning. And you're like, yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great, Cousin Mike. Let's all float down to Grandma's house. So you go down there, and you go down there. And she's laying in bed. And her clothes are all dirty. The place is a mess. You see tissues. You see tissues that were being used to clean food out of her wrinkles just laying on the floor. And you're like, oh my God, what is going on here? Grandma. And Mike's like, no, we can't interfere. We're just here to like stand here and go, Grandma, come to the other side. It's beautiful up here. And you're like, no, that's nuts. I'm not doing that. You're all picking up tissues, throwing them away. You're like, nobody treats my grandma like this. You're all tearing her clothes off, putting clean clothes on her. And you're like, no one does this to Grandma Angela. Then you hear Bruce come through the door and Grandma's talking to you, all that stuff. Like, I wonder how often ghosts get mad like that. Because that would make sense. This story, originally I told the story because it was short. Now I keep kind of extrapolating on it. Imagine you're dead, and a loved one of yours goes to a retirement home and is mistreated there. And now you're floating around. You just came to visit her and tell her how great it is to be dead. But you see, like, a nurse come in and being like, nobody loves you, old woman. Nobody loves you but the spirits of the damned, and not even they will come to visit you. Not even the ghosts from beyond will visit you. Oh, I hate you, old lady. And then you see the nurse leave. I wonder how often that happens. Because these ghosts are always coming and visiting people before they die. And they see sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they see their relative, right? Their loved one being mistreated, or at the very least, not treated as well as they should be. Maybe they just have some bed sores. Maybe you don't have a nurse actually, like, physically threatening them. But, they just don't turn you enough. You're like, oh, and then you appear as a ghost at the end of the bed. She's like, oh, are you here to tell me that the other side is beautiful and I'll see all my loved ones? And you go, yes, Grandma, that is part of the reason why I'm here. Part of the reason. And then you slip into the shadows and you hear the nurse's footsteps coming down the hallway. Clip, clop, clip, clop, clip. She walks into your grandmother's room. What is it this time, you old crone? I was watching The Price is Right and I didn't get any of the answers right. No, I'm in such a bad mood. I'm going to throw these frozen peas at you. She's just throwing frozen peas at your grandma. And you come out of the darkness and you slide your ghost hands into that nurse's body and break her ribs. And your grandma sees all this. She's like, blood spraying out on your grandma. I'm doing this for you, Grandma. I'm doing this for you. And then you snap the nurse's neck. And then you're floating down the hallway. The alarms are going off. They're like, revenge ghost. They're prepared for this, by the way. All retirement homes have a revenge ghost backup plan. You're floating down the hallways and you're just like karate chopping nurses. You see the doctor. He's like, no, I have a family. And you like reach your arm into his stomach, rip it out. But don't kill him because he has a family, right? You're like, I will let you live. But you have to live with your stomach sticking out of your mouth. I'll do it. And you're floating around, and then you take out everyone who ever mistreated your grandmother. And then you go back to your grandma's room, you're flying past ghosts, and they're all like, what happened, Nancy? What happened? Oh, don't worry, that you'll die, and the other side is beautiful. You're floating past them, you're all, Then you go to your grandmother, and you're like, yes, there is life after death, and there will be peace there, Grandma. Peace like you've never known. And you give a little kiss on the forehead, and then you disappear. You come back. You like show up to heaven. They're like, what? Nah, dude. The door's shut. You're like, I don't remember this door being shut the last time I was up here. They're like, yeah, there's a couple rules in heaven. One of them is you can't become a bloodthirsty revenge ghost. You're going to have to stay locked out of here for about the next 3,000 to 10,000 years. Think about what you did, and you're like, oh, that makes me want to get revenge. You're all floating around Earth, looking for more people to kill. Well, that was a roller coaster of emotions this episode, but I hope you guys enjoyed the last two stories as much as you could. The first story is a downer, but I don't even want to bring it back up. It's a downer, but I think it's something we do have to talk about, unfortunately, from time to time. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal conspiracy and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great